Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for stopping by the channel. So for this video, we're going to be checking out one of my favorite watch releases this year, and that is this guy here, the Longines Zulu Time. Now the Zulu Time offers a GMT complication to the popular Longines Spirit collection, which draws inspiration from this brand's heritage and pioneering spirit for accompanying many legends in the aviation industry as they conquered the air. That's their marketing materials. But I've been impressed by the previous Longines Spirit models in the past when it comes to their build quality and their finishing, but adding a GMT complication really elevates the value proposition and functionality in my opinion for this particular timepiece. So the Zulu Time is a 42mm diameter watch featuring their newly developed GMT caliber movement, which is also very competitively priced at 3,600 Canadian dollars. Now interestingly, I found it's the same price to get this watch on the bracelet as it is on the leather strap, and I've tried on a couple of different Zulu models on either the leather strap or the bracelet, and I have to say that the bracelet option is the way to go on this one, but I'll get more into the details of that a little bit later in the video. Now in terms of overall dimensions, the Zulu Time wears true to that 40mm case diameter with a lug-to-lug of 49mm, which I should mention does extend well past 49mm with the fixed male end link portion of the bracelet. Now the height of this watch is 14.2mm, which is broken up quite well by the mid case and its bi-directional 24-hour GMT bezel. Now the OEM bracelet does sit between an even 22mm lug spacing, which is nice because that's a fairly common lug spacing if you want to swap out the bracelet for a host of aftermarket strap options. Now with respect to the dial design for this timepiece, it's very well finished and intricate given the price point. In true aviator's fashion, you have Arabic numerals as the hour indicators with a date cutout that replaces the 6 o'clock marker, aiding to the overall symmetry of the dial. Each Arabic numeral is applied, nicely polished and raised above the dial, and the centers for each hour marker, as well as all of the hands and the triangle on the bezel, are generously coated with Swiss Superluminova that glows a very intense green and is very evenly applied throughout the watch. Now just under the 12 o'clock position of the anthracite dial, you do have a Longines winged hourglass logo that is applied, as well as the Longines and automatic typeface surrounding that logo. And then just above the date cutout at 6, you have Zulu Time and the Longines 5-star emblem, as well as a chronometer certificate for this GMT movement. Now the hand stack itself is also highly polished with the same gilt accents on the dial markers, while also having a seconds hand that extends all the way to the very periphery of the dial. Now at the very outskirts of this dial, you do have a raised running minute track, and at every 5-minute interval, there are diamond wedges that are actually cut out of this raised minute track, and that gives you even more added dimension to the overall dial design, which I find is a really subtle but striking feature. Now perhaps one of the biggest selling points for this particular watch is the Longines caliber L844.4, and this is their in-house GMT movement. Well, I say in-house, but they really just have access to a lot of ETA-based calibers under the Swatch umbrella. Nevertheless, this caliber is exclusive to them, and it's a true Traveler's GMT automatic movement, which allows for isolated adjustment of the hour hand when the crown is unscrewed and opened up to the first position. This also allows you to set your local time when traveling and can also drive the date either forwards or backwards when you cross midnight, and all this is done without hacking the movement or affecting the overall accuracy of a timepiece. Now when you do pull the crown out to the furthest position, you will hack the movement and stop the seconds hand, and in this way you can precisely adjust your home time, so the GMT hand, to whichever reference time you want. Now some of the impressive specifications for this movement is that it does have 72 hours of power reserve and this watch beats away at 25,200 VPH or 3.5 Hertz, and it also has a monocrystalline silicon balance spring, which should help protect against magnetic fields. Now, one minor quibble I do have with the automatic movement here is that I've noticed some rotor wobble when wearing this watch, and this is actually something that I've observed on other timepieces from Longines, for example, their Aviation Big Eye chronograph. Now, none of this actually impacts the overall accuracy of the movement, but it is something that I did note. Now, with the aid of the bidirectional green and gilt ceramic bezel, you can actually track up to 3 different time zones. Though, to be honest, I typically keep the bezel fixed, so I'm really only just tracking my local time and a home time zone. That being said, the action on the 24-click bezel is actually quite precise, and it doesn't get knocked out of place very easily if you did in fact want to utilize this to track a 3rd time zone in the future. Now, with respect to the case finishing, it's a mostly brushed finish with a very nice beveled polished transitional line that runs from one end of a lug all the way to the other, and these lugs themselves are nicely cropped and angular. The crown is also a very nice size at 6.9 millimeters in diameter to my calipers. It's a screw down crown, which does afford this watch 100 meters of water resistance, and it's also signed with the Longines vintage logo. Now, the OEM bracelet is a nice oyster style bracelet. It does have fine polish accents running down the sides of the center links, and it also does have a nice taper from 22 millimeters at the head of the watch down to 18 millimeters at the clasp. The clasp itself is signed Longines. It does have 5 micro adjustment anchoring points on it, and it does have a simple twin trigger opening mechanism that shows off the milled swing arms. And at the level of the end links, they do have an integrated quick release button, which makes swapping it out for straps very efficient. Now, it is worth noting that these end links do turn down more dramatically than previous iterations of the Spirit, so it will conform nicely to your wrist. Now, it would have been nice if it had some on-the-fly micro adjustment on the bracelet clasp, because I believe they have some sort of toolless micro extension when you look at the deployment for the strap option. But overall, I do think that the bracelet does match the price segment that this watch is positioned in. Now, on the wrist, this watch wears fairly flat and comfortable, and for reference, my wrist size is 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters in total circumference if you use the metric system. And on the bracelet size to my wrist, it weighs in at a healthy 162 grams. But if you want to lighten the load just a little bit, I do recommend putting on it on a strap, especially if your wrist is under 7 inches. I think it'll just wear more comfortable that way. And I will say that this watch is an absolute strap monster. So at the end of the day, I do think that the Longines Zulu Time is a very compelling watch if you're looking to get into an everyday piece at around that $3,000 to $4,000 price point. Now, at 42 millimeters, some people might find this watch a little bit too big for their wrist, and they might opt for something like, say, the Tudor Black Bay Pro. That's a 39 millimeters GMT, and it's also a GMT that I plan to review on my channel in the near future. But that watch is also effectively over $1,000 more at retail, and it's also fairly scarce to get at the time of recording this video. But as always, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Longines Zulu Time in the comment section of this video. And do you think this watch checks all the boxes when you're just looking for a great everyday traveler's GMT? Now, if you do enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. It does really help me out. And as always, I can't wait to catch you in the next review.